Previously on Area 52 Investigations.
So when I had my out-of-body experience, it was terrifying.
It was time to head back to Virginia.
The one main thing I got from the out-of-body experience is the absolute knowledge that I would transcend physical mortality.
Over the next few days, we'll be going through a process called entrainment.
And suddenly I realized that I'm standing behind myself.
The first one we end up learning is Focus 10. They refer to this as mind awake, body asleep.
And I felt my body lighter than before.
We then moved on to Focus 12, which represents a specific state of expanded awareness.
I sincerely felt like there was a truck driving, on the property, like a Mack truck. I saw myself sitting on this balcony, staring out at nature.
So it looked like this, like a scoreboard.
It's on my mind. Normally it wouldn't be. So somehow you journeyed through at least a part of my mental bubble and picked up that part.
This session, ladies and gentlemen, is about leaving the body.
If you're interested in being a part of these investigations, you can become an intern at Area 52 by joining our Patreon. For just $5 a month, you can browse through hours of unseen content, uncut interviews, and enjoy early access to every video. You will also be granted special permission to access the top secret clearance section of our rapidly growing Discord community, which includes weekly events like Q&As with special guests, movie nights, and above all, you'll be tasked with important missions which will help us with our investigations. The link is in the description. And now for part 2 of the Gateway Experience. After having multiple out-of-body experiences which led me to the Monroe Institute, I began the Gateway process and started noticing physiological and psychological symptoms associated with the technology used within the Monroe Sound Science. And hearing firsthand accounts of similar out-of-body experiences from the trainers and participants, I realized that my psyche was getting primed for something to happen. And just as I thought the week couldn't get any better, we were visited by a familiar face. Joe McMoneagle, remote viewer 001.
Howdy, Joe. What a nice surprise.
Yeah. I was going to let a little intro on what remote viewing is and where it's coming from. Maybe you want to do this.
Yeah, remote viewing came about because we found out that the Soviets at the time, they were using a group of psychics. They released a study that they did on mice to show that psychics could target the mice. Then they had to raise their anxiety to a point where it would cause physical harm. In other words, in humans, they expected to be able to produce strokes, heart attacks, high anxiety, so the decision-making was corrupted to some degree. They did that 3 times, and outside of one mouse scare, it worked. So they leaked that to the West, and Congress went bang.
If you're interested in hearing more of what Joe was talking about, I would suggest checking out our previous investigation on Project Stargate.
Good morning. Day 3? Day 2? I guess is this day 2? Hold on. This is day 3. Wow. Everyone's in agreement. Time has a way of messing with you while you're here, and I think one of the reasons for that is because you're in and out of consciousness constantly. So every time we're done with a session, we wake up, we kind of wander around, we see each other for the debrief, and everybody's like, good morning, good morning, good morning. So it does feel like I've been here for weeks. Last night we had an amazing treat. We had the one and only Joe McMoneagle show up and talk to us. We started off by actually doing a remote viewing session, which wasn't too bad. The city of St. Louis with there was the arch, there was this giant stadium, which I picked up on. So it was a pretty cool session, and it was pretty cool watching people try remote viewing for the first time who were there. After which, Joe proceeded to regale us with some of his amazing stories. So it was a real joy to watch him and to just be in his presence.
You bought into the entire idea that time and space is real. I don't believe that for a second. I violate it every day, and I don't believe it's real. It's a construct, and remote viewing is no different. That's another form of construct for time and space. So when you use these examples, okay, in your training or whatever you're going to do with them, if you ever do anything with them. What you need to do is make sure that you add in we're more than our physical body. Because that's why I did it. That's why you have the films. That's why all this is done. Because people need to understand human beings are magical. We have one foot in the spiritual and unbelievable magical world, and we have the other foot in the harsh realities of physical life. And we blend them and we use them, and we're the only animal on this planet that I'm aware of that does that. I want people to understand that. That's what this whole place is for. Is so people understand that a single individual, I don't care what their background is, their education, their culture, their country, their city, I don't care about any of that. We all have individual power that is immense.
Right now, breakfast is going on, so I'm going to go catch that, and then we're going to get ready for session number 1. Oh, yeah, and no weird dreams. Nothing to report on the out-of-bodiness.
My name is Sean Webb, and I'm a human mind and consciousness researcher. And my goal is to increase happiness in the world. You know, the whole path of me wanting to help educate people about their mind and their consciousness came accidentally when I had a consciousness expansion experience of my own a couple of decades ago that blew my mind. I mean, it was like take everything you know about human life and your existence and throw it out the window, and it's all meaningless. And here's the reality of the universe as it's dumped into your psyche. The experience seemed like it lasted thousands of years. Like I was gone so long within an hour time span, because this happened within a natural and meditation-induced experience.
No drugs.
No drugs, no psychedelics at all. I had read a book on D.T. Suzuki, Introduction to Zen, and I read him talking about the idea of Satori and ceasing conscious thought, and the function of Zen was to simply cease conscious thought and listen to what existed beyond that. Because I had this financial success previously, and then I still wasn't happy. I bought a house and a speedboat and classic car and all the trappings, and then I looked out upon the second lot that I had, and I was like, well, let me put a gazebo over there with some sound speakers. And I was like, wait a second, I just closed on a house at the age of 27 in Atlanta, Georgia. Not a cheap house, all by myself after 10 years of being in poverty. Came off of food stamps 10 years previous to that. So I have this American success story, the American dream, and I'm already figuring out what I need to add to get happiness. And so that just didn't jive with me. So then it kind of drove me into okay, what am I missing internally? Because I'm going to be chasing this thing for the rest of my life if I keep adding stuff and then needing to add more. Yeah. And so that's when I started the whole spiritual introspection. About 3 or 4 weeks into meditation, falling, falling asleep and then waking up after my nap after I started meditation, I focused on ceasing conscious thought. And about 20 minutes into that one particular meditation, it started a whole amazing science fiction story of experience where I was sucked into this vortex of energy, went off into the middle of the universe, met this unconditionally loving entity that seemed like it was God. It explained everything in the universe. I understood how all the multidimensionality worked. I saw the chemical reactions down at the micro level of energy exchange and the field opening up and releasing heat and light and yada, yada, yada. And it's beautiful structures. And understood everything. Went off and lived multiple lives. Experienced all kinds of trials and tribulations and challenges and triumphs. And was gone so long that I forgot that I was a human named Sean. And I thought I was dead. I thought I was off and, oh, this is heaven. Okay, so I'm hanging out with God, and this is real, and okay, this is cool, I can deal with this. This is awesome, because it's amazing, it's all made of love, and the whole universe is all one, and there's nothing to fear, everything's perfect. Then there came a point where it was like, okay, well, you gotta go back. And I was like, go back? What are you talking about, go back? And they're like, well, you gotta go back and be human. And I was like, oh, so I have a responsibility maybe to be human. All right, so that's cool. So I'll go back and be a human baby. I guess I'll sign up for that. You know, maybe with what I've learned, I can live a better life and help people more and whatever. And then I realized as I'm coming back towards Earth, I'm coming back to my house. Like I see my house and I see my body on my bed and I'm like, no. As I'm coming back towards Earth, coming back towards my body, I'm losing all the understanding that I knew about how the universe worked. Like all of the answers to everything, secrets of black holes and all that stuff is out there. You have access to it, but we can't hold it in here. We're pretty stupid as humans. And so I was like, you can't just show me this and then put me back into this body. I'm gonna be done. I don't want to do this anymore. And they said, all right, well, what do you want? And I said, well, let's knock out this pain and suffering thing. And the immediate response I got was a kind of a joke. It was, well, you want the first? You sure you want to do that? And I got visions of like Jesus and Muhammad and Buddha and all the previous folks who tried, and I wouldn't say failed. Like I wouldn't want to call those folks failures at all because they succeeded, but at the same time, it's like, what have we done with their messages? So then I got a download during those last moments of how the process of pain and suffering in the human psyche works. I unpacked this over a number of years and write a couple of books. And it turns out that the model that I had put together on explaining the process of human emotions and how they come to be, no one had published that before. I called Roz Picard at MIT and I said, here's my model, you know, tell me what book I missed. So she's the person who wrote the book on effective computing, which is the logical explanation of emotions, trying to figure out how to get computers to do emotions. And she said, no, this is brand new, and you are the person who figured this out. That moment sent me on a brand new path. It was like, okay, I need to figure out what I tapped into. Because from a pragmatic perspective, you know, I'm like you in that I have a skeptical mind. How does this work? How does this really work? What's the physics behind the magic that's really going on here? So at the point that I had gone off without leaving my bed to have an experience seemingly somewhere else, to the point that I'd forgotten that I was human, came back with an understanding that I had no qualifications of having. Now I'm this person who came up with this model to explain process of pain and suffering in the human mind that jived with all what the ancient masters had said in their esoteric writings, etc., yet also jived with the science of what neuroscience was telling us and psychological sciences was telling us. Where did I get that? Where did that come from? Because if I can do it, anybody can do it.
Right. Had some breakfast and had our morning meeting. We are now going into something called Focus 15. They didn't give us any more information about that, and they're like, go discover it, let the frequency play, and be curious and see how you feel in that state.
Now, Focus 15 is where it gets interesting. It represents a state of quote-unquote no time, where you experience a deep sense of timelessness and disconnection from the usual flow of time. The normal perception of time, past, present, and future, dissolves. You experience a state where time feels irrelevant, allowing you to explore consciousness without the constraints of linear time. This state is characterized by profound inner stillness and quiet. Your mind becomes extremely calm, making it easier to access deeper levels of awareness and insight. Without the constraints of time, you can explore past experiences, gain insight into future possibilities, and understand the continuity of your consciousness. This state can also help you connect with higher aspects of your consciousness, facilitating spiritual development and a deeper sense of purpose.
That was fun. Focus 15 felt nice. I feel like I lost track of time during Focus 15. I feel like I might have clicked out. I definitely feel like time wasn't a factor. I know that's hard to grasp. It's even hard for me to even hear myself say it, so I don't fully know what happened, but we're going to go to the debrief and they're going to explain to us what Focus 15 was all about. It becomes very nebulous when you're in these states. You know, you're in and out of dream consciousness, and now they're taking time away as well, so it's like I don't exactly know what's going on. And like I said this morning, my experience of time has already been altered. Been strange. We just had our debrief, and turns out what I was doing was pretty much what was intended. It's a giant dark void, and if you don't intend to do anything during that meditation time, you will probably drift off. Okay. The last 2 sessions, we had back-to-back sessions. There were parts where I was like in a deep state where I heard myself snore. I was literally listening to myself snore and observing myself, which was interesting. But ultimately, I think I just clicked out. I fell asleep and woke up near the end of it. So nothing much to report. I don't have much time because they're waiting for me here. Although I may not end up leaving my body while I'm here, I'm learning to enjoy meditating, which is something I never really did or understood. And so I'm thankful to have the opportunity to learn that I can do this too, because it was always quite daunting and I always felt like a bit of an imposter while doing it, but it feels pretty good. So thankful for that. And we are back. Fell asleep. But
It was clear to me by now that I was putting a lot of pressure on myself. And to take some of that pressure off, that night we decided to go sky watching, as my friend Ryan Bledsoe calls it. Basically looking up at the sky to see if we can notice any anomalous activity, which we noticed quite a bit of, actually. Ryan's got an interesting story. His father put out a best-selling book titled UFO of God, where he recounts some of the most compelling encounters with not only crafts, but entities. In fact, it was so compelling that it caught the eyes and ears of the intelligence community.
So Chris, the CIA is studying you, NASA's studying you. You can summon alien orbs.
Well, it's been happening.
This book, for me, was groundbreaking. I highly suggest you guys go check it out. But more than that, I also suggest you guys check out Ryan's podcast, Bledsoe Said So. Ever since reading the book, I've been listening to Ryan talk about these things that have been happening to him and his family, and I couldn't pass up the opportunity to ask him about it while I was there at the Monroe Institute. And looking back, I don't think us being there at the same time was a chance encounter at all.
My name is Ryan Bledsoe. I'm the host of the Bledsoe Said So podcast. I'm probably more readily recognized by my father's book, UFO of God. He's sort of a well-known UFO paranormal experiencer out there in this realm of things, you know. I just started having these experiences at 13 years old, and I kind of made it my life's mission to try to raise awareness about it to as many people as possible. So doing the podcast, I kind of treat it as a meta documentary, is what I've always seen it in my mind, where we'll have episodes where we do deep dives on certain esoteric topics or pop culture symbolism, things like that, and then we'll do episodes where it's more or less canon, where we're talking about the story and digesting a lot of these heavier topics.
Meta documentary is a really good way to put it.
Yeah.
Because, you know, after reading your father's book, it's kind of like a spin-off for me, you know, as someone who's like, well, what's next? And then I get to see, you know, you get out there and sort of, you know, follow in your father's footsteps, so to speak. What brings you to the Monroe Institute?
Yeah, so about 2 years ago, my dad he has a manager, and his manager is on the board at Monroe. And he's sort of like an ex-intelligence guy, so he has some connections in that field. And just had the idea, let's get your family to Monroe. Let's go to this exclusive UAP, UFO retreat that was held for, I mean, I didn't meet everybody that was there, but it was a small group of people in this space. So I declined to go, which I regret, because at the time I had just started the podcast and I was afraid that if I went, that I wouldn't be able to speak about it or at all. You know, it's kind of unique what's happening here with us, being allowed to go and document it, and that's never happened. So I declined, unfortunately, and my father and my sister ended up being the only ones going, and they had a life-changing experience. Yeah, so ever since, we've had a relationship with Monroe. Dad put them in the last chapter of his book, and we just love the Institute and what they're about, and I started doing my own research and having my sister on to tell her story, and next thing you know, they're just inviting me to come, and I couldn't. It was an offer I couldn't refuse.
I went down the road of learning how to remote view, went down the road of being hypnotized for life between life sessions. Now I'm here, and there's the, you know, obviously there's the UAP, UFO thing as well. there's clearly an overlap here between everything. These things aren't isolated incidents. They're all connected. Mm-hmm. You have a unique take on it because of faith, you and your father. And that is something that you don't come across readily in this environment. Mm-hmm. Do you want to speak to how, maybe just touch on how you see it all being connected?
Sure, yeah. You know, when we say faith, to me, faith implies a lack of knowing or tangible experience. It's the idea that you don't have proof of something, but you still choose to believe. But my dad and I and our family, we like to talk about it more as a knowing. You know, when you experience something so many times, thousands of times, and have tangible, you know, experiences, that it goes beyond faith or belief. It's a knowing, and we know that this thing is real. And thankfully, we have had the opportunity to demonstrate it to people and kind of prove that it was real. So beyond that, though, because of what I've experienced and the way that I've seen them interact countless times, I've just come to find that everything in this is under the umbrella of spiritual. We're alive, we have a body, we have a brain, we have thoughts, we have a mind. But what about when we don't have the body, right? Do we still have the mind? Do we still have the thoughts? Do we still have the experience? Do we still keep going, right? It's like what Bob Monroe says, you're more than your physical body. And I think everything in that umbrella, whether it's beings coming from another dimension, well, if they're not physical, how are they living? You know, are they vibrational? Are they frequency? Are they light? Are they, I don't know what they are. But to me, that's spiritual. The existence of something that doesn't require a physical body. Something I've seen many times, you know, beings walk through walls or step out of an orb or, you know, just do crazy things. And we've just come to understand over the years that it's all related to consciousness. It's all related to our perception. The bigger question about things, you know, life after death and the mysteries about all of this, the universe, and why we're here, how do we get here, what does it all matter? You know, it's all spiritual to me.
I can't even imagine how profound, you know, that feeling is that you share with your father, your sister, your family. I think what you're describing, you know, is what a lot of people are looking for.
Right.
It's what a lot of people are seeking. It's that void that they want filled. Mm-hmm. As someone who's, quote unquote, had that void filled, what would you say to those people?
Behind this reality is ineffable. It's beyond what we can truly fathom, and all we can really do is just let go of trying to understand it, have that humility in our heart, and keep the intention that you'll be guided towards the truth, whatever that may be. And you know, it wouldn't hurt to go outside and the night sky and look up and just say to the heavens, hey, I mean, if you're willing, I'd really like to see. I think people will be shocked what happens.
And finally, this is Focus 21. Focus 21 is an advanced state of consciousness identified by the Monroe Institute, representing the edge of time and space. It is often described as the bridge to other dimensions and higher planes of existence. In Focus 21, you go beyond the constraints of both time and space, experiencing a state where you are no longer bound by the physical world. This state is often perceived as the boundary or the gateway to other realities. Focus 21 allows you to perceive and interact with other dimensions, spiritual realms, and non-physical entities. You might encounter guides, higher aspects of yourself, or other consciousness existing in these realms. This state is conducive to deep spiritual insights, transformative experiences, and a greater understanding of your place in the larger cosmos. It can facilitate profound personal and spiritual growth. In Focus 21, you'll do things like exploring other dimensions, communicating with non-physical entities. It's a state that transcends the physical world, and this state is often seen as the gateway to even higher levels of consciousness.
Day 4? Is it day 4? It's like 1 p.m. We had a silent morning, and that's why I couldn't check in with you guys. We had to actually not speak for I don't know how many hours, but basically we did all the... Sorry, I'm just kind of like... I'll tell you, when you get out of these things, your mind is a bit mush. They even tell us, like, avoid driving. If you have to drive, do not drive anywhere. And I was like, what do you mean? And they're like, because you'll see, you're like kind of like zonked out all the time. And that's exactly what I'm feeling. I've never felt this before, so I'm still kind of getting used to it. This meditation was really, really cool for me. They were playing some frequencies that they said would alter our frequency of our being or whatever, and I felt it. It was very strange. I felt light as a feather at one point, and I thought to myself, ooh, this might be it. This might be, obviously didn't happen, but the dreams that I'm having at night and the visions that I'm having during the meditations are becoming more vivid. I don't know if that's due to practice or if that's, I don't know, but it's getting stronger. I can tell you that. I also want to say, since I've got here, I've connected with a lot of people. Those connections were immediately very strong. I felt like I knew a lot of these people already. It's just so cool when you're in this space because it's an ego-free, judgment-free zone where you're allowed to, get personal. You're allowed to share your deeper, most inner thoughts, and no one's saying, oh, you sound crazy. The discussions we had lasted till 2 a.m. every morning, ranging from magic to psychology to the spiritual to UFOs and you name it. And these conversations have been some of the most enlightening and engaging conversations that I've ever had in my life. So I'm very thankful, very grateful for that. I'm very grateful to meet such interesting and fascinating individuals with big hearts and lots to teach me. So I'm ready to listen and learn. Really cool, life-changing experience so far.
I'm not gonna lie. At this point, I was starting to think that maybe all of this was just like an isolated incident that won't, happen again. Or maybe it was in my head. Maybe it was some type of dream, or I don't know. Doubt was starting to sink in, especially after looking around and noticing that not one person in these last 3 or 4 days had an out-of-body experience. But all that changed after lunch. I mean, here's what happened.
All week we've been having chats about these out-of-body experiences. And as you know, I had one, I had 2, but they were involuntary and they were very scary for me. But I'm kind of like chasing that now. I want to harness that. We've been hearing people have, near-death experiences, leaving their body regularly, some of them, not being able to. But something just happened.
Yeah.
Just now. Mm-hmm. Like during the last meditation.
Uh-huh.
Can you walk us through what happened?
Yes. So all week I've been a little bit skeptical, like maybe this just isn't going to work for me. Maybe I'm just meditating. Maybe it's not even possible to get out of your body. Maybe this will just be a cool experience and kind of wacky, but not really result in anything too profound. Just today, this morning, we had 3 meditations, and during our second meditation, towards the end, I felt myself leap out of my body, like bust through, like so excited to get out. It was this feeling of, oh my gosh, it's happening, we're finally doing it, let's go. It was like my soul was saying, she's ready, and my body was like, oh my God. And my whole body felt so cold, like not in a bad way, not in a dead way, but just excited, the adrenaline of going down a roller coaster without leaving your bed. It was such a joyful experience, like, let's do this. Like she's ready, let's go. This is gonna be so fun for her. I briefly went to Paris, got a little bit too excited, a little too freaked out, a little too, oh my gosh, this is really, really happening. It was so new that I wanted to come back. But when I came back in, I opened my eyes and my entire body still feels like that cold, almost as if like somebody scares you, like you get a jump scare and you still feel it hours later where you just like can't shake it.
You know, for me, there's an intense vibration that happened and everything was very fuzzy. You know, as I floated out of my body, I could see myself, and it was a really bizarre experience. Can you step by step take us through all the little details as you remember them?
Okay. So this meditation felt a little different because I went in a little more relaxed than usual. And I also went in with positive expectation, but no pressure. That's a pretty fine line to walk. Not much happened in terms of getting the messages that we were being guided to get, but it still felt super liminal. I was in that in-between space where I was conscious, but I was somewhere else. About 5 minutes before the meditation was over, it was this crazy rush of energy in my body, mostly in my abdomen, feeling like cold and shaky. And then it was like, then it happened. Then it was like, let's go, let's do this. And I popped out like an ice cube out of a tray.
Was there a sound? Was there just, it was just, you were projected?
No, there was no sound. I was projected. It was like I was from a mold, you know, like my soul came out of the mold of my body. But the release afterwards was so cathartic. Like, I started laughing and crying because I was trying to, I was so excited. I was like, it worked. You know, this stuff really works. It was such great validation. But then I was like, what's next? Like, how far can I go? Now that I'm like fully bought in, I can see what my body can do. I can see what my brain can do. I can trust a little bit more in this process. And now I feel like the sky is the limit.
Okay, I didn't give you guys an update before I went in, but we're doing Focus 21, which is like another higher tier level. A bit shaky. You know, after hearing Hannah have a breakthrough and pop out of her body, it really, really clicked something within me, like, this can happen for me. I felt very happy for her to have that breakthrough, and I felt like maybe that's what I needed to see. There was like a barrier holding me back, and I think that was it. While sitting in the debrief room, or the intro earlier in the cabin, I was almost in tears. I was looking at everybody, and, you know, over the last few days getting to know people, but going through something like this is really, really deep. I don't know how to explain it other than that. You gotta understand, I'm a little loopy right now. But during this meditation, this is probably the most profound one that I've had so far, and I was trying to just go with it. And as I was going with it, I felt just this crazy tingling in all of my body. And it was kind of emotional. Like, I was literally smiling with, like, I wasn't attempting to smile. It just was, the smile started growing on my face, and I started getting really emotional. It was very bizarre. I'm going to try to remain calm because we're going back in right away without debriefing. And I don't want this feeling to go away. Hannah had mentioned this, she described it as this peppermint feeling in her stomach, where her stomach got real cold and her body got cold, like a peppermint type cold, and I didn't know what she meant by it. I started feeling this like pepperminty thing in my stomach, and I went, oh my God, it's happening. And it didn't go past that, but it kept swelling up and getting to that point where I felt this thing, and I felt my limbs tingle, and man, I am getting close. I can feel it, and it is positively encouraging. I'm very, very, very stoked about this. I feel like the pressure is wearing off, and I'm just on the cusp of having a breakthrough.
I'm Ignacio Diaz Jr., and I am a guest trainer here at Monroe. I also work in the audio department. June of 2022 is when I started. I got my first taste of the signal tech back in the mid-90s, and of course read all of Bob's books at that point too.
I would normally ask what the first out-of-body experience was and how that felt. Mm-hmm. But I want to ask you, what does it feel like now compared to what it felt like the first time?
Ironically, it feels new each time. It feels new each time.
And exciting?
Exciting, sometimes a little unnerving, but I know I'm in control. It's me. I am exploring, and if I come upon some unnerving feelings, sensations, I can simply bring myself back. I simply think of my body and I'm back in it. The first and sometimes challenging part is really being able to quiet the body so that it's not a distraction, so you don't have your normal waking senses creating noise. And so once that's calm, out of the way, then going through the process and targeting states of expanded awareness, perceiving other senses, so to speak.
You know, I'm on my own journey to try and make this all happen, so all this really is good information for me. Mm-hmm. And, you know, and I'm hearing the don't stress about it, it'll happen, let it go, but also, you know, tell yourself it's gonna happen, like all, you know, this sort of dance back and forth. And my experience that I had was involuntary. It happened spontaneously twice in a row, 2 nights in a row, and it was very, very scary. So I have a hard time not being frightened by it because of that sort of trauma. Mm-hmm. What's a piece of advice that you could give me?
You're always in control. You're always in control. Much like you operate your physical body, it's that aspect of you that controls the physical body that can choose to engage the experience or not. You'll know if you're ready, you'll know if it's uncomfortable, and you simply say, not now, later. My advice is never say stop or no, because then that might take a while to come back. But you just say pause, you know, another time.
You know, I'm a knower because it happened to me. You know, I don't have to, I don't have the luxury of believing.
Right.
You know, I know.
It can't be undone.
Exactly. I can't unbelieve. It's,
right.
I know it to be true, and I know it to be almost more than real. Like it's a bizarre feeling. But my audience, obviously, a lot of them may or may not have had similar experiences.
Right.
What would you say to those out there that are like, I don't really buy it? Like, what would you say to them?
That's completely okay. It's okay. It's not for everybody, but it's available to everybody.
Good morning. No weird dreams to report from last night, but today is the last day. We leave tomorrow morning. Yesterday was a pretty hard day for me near the end of it, because after the meditation session, I had this like crazy emotional dump. Is all I can put it as, where I was just kind of drained. I had to sweating and shaking, and it was an insane experience. That's all I can say. It was very real, very intense. You know, I go to the debrief yesterday, and you know, I share this with the group that this is what happened to me, and I was kind of like, you know, I just want this to be over with at this point, because it's like I was kind of almost there. And at that point, I was just like, let's just go, just get past it, get it over with, you know? So I asked one of the counselors, Archie, if I could, you know, listen to some Hemisync tapes tonight while I sleep, to just like, because I feel like I was almost there. And he advised against it. He's like, I don't think that's the right call right now. I think right now you should take a walk outside, jump in the pool, get your mind off it, and tomorrow come back refreshed. And that's what I ended up doing. We ended up swimming. We ended up having a great time. My mood changed throughout the evening. It felt really great to just connect with people here and talk and laugh. And today I'm in a good mood. I'm feeling positive, still feeling very relaxed, and looking forward to hopefully getting out of body. But if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. And I'm thinking at this point, it might just be the pressure. You know, I got the camera, I want the story, you know, so it's definitely something that is in the back of my psyche saying, hey, you know, as long as you're feeling that pressure, you're not going to pop out. So I'm trying to today really take away that pressure, really say to myself, you know what, if it doesn't happen, it'll happen while I'm at home, and then I'll document it there. And that's it. That's the end of it. So I'm just going to try and relax and have a great experience today. And I'm going to go with that positive mindset. But either way, I'm having a good time. All right, breakfast. I had breakfast, had the intro. Today we're going to be doing, or for now, we're going to be doing another free flow in Focus 21. And this is the one that kind of messed me up yesterday. So actually looking forward to doing it again and exploring it maybe further and with more intention this time. So we'll see.
Paul Citarella. Been here at Monroe for almost 4 years now. My role is Executive Vice President and Chief Technology Officer. So basically my role is focusing on our overall growth strategy.
When was your first out-of-body experience?
Somewhere 15 years ago, maybe a little bit longer. I had read Bob's books actually prior to that, and I was going through the Gateway experience. So I had the CDs and I was doing that at home. And I was doing one of those every day. I was going through those and not having a whole lot of experiences happen during like the actual exercises, but I started having things happen at night when I was sleeping. It started with lucid dreams, which was new to me, and that was kind of mind-blowing just by itself, and just being aware in this dream environment and being able to control the dream, and that was really cool. But I really wanted to have that classic out-of-body experience. And then it happened probably a few months after I was like going, you know, into the Gateway series. And I didn't have the same kind of vibrations that Robert Monroe talks about, but something similar. And I ended up just kind of peeling out of my body and in my room, and then looking at my body and being like, you know, at first I was just, I don't know, it's kind of a mixture of, I guess, astonishment and like, you know, I was also trying to have it, so some relief, I guess, as well, but just some strong emotion. Then I just kind of clicked right back in. And that happened to me a lot in those early days, is like as soon as I'd get out, I'd get really excited, and then that would just wake me up. After reading, you know, Robert Monroe's books, and I've always been a seeker, hearing about his experiences, I mean, that to me, you know, if that was real, like that just changed everything for me. Like that was so amazing that something like that could really be true, because it's, you know, it changes our whole definition of like reality. Like, you know, everything we know tells us that shouldn't be possible. And so that's why for me it was excitement. It was like I'm actually having this experience, and then that proof of having that be my own experience now was just incredible.
What are you most excited about at the Monroe Institute right now that you guys are currently working on? What excites you? What gets you out of bed? And what keeps you going about this place?
You know, what really excites me now is, you know, we're always doing new things. You know, we've got research going on. We're always working to like improve what we do. But our focus on like getting this out to the world in a big way is what really makes me most excited. And that's kind of what I do. I mean, I'm really just focused on our growth strategy and how do we get this out there? Because knowing from my own perspective how this changed my attitude, my outlook on life, you know, everything that I thought was important before, you know, that all shifted. And I know that if enough people have that experience, that can just change the world. I mean, that can change society.
First meditation of the day is done. Interesting one for sure, as this was the sort of entity superhighway. And I kept getting the message, you are ancient, and it wouldn't stop. It was like super deep, you are ancient. And that's it. Cool. That's the same. It's interesting because the feeling I had when a few days ago I had this like rumbling that was like starting in my legs and building up, and I could like feel the room shaking and hear it shaking, and there was like this rumbling going on. The first thought I had in my mind was, this is ancient. Whatever's happening to me is ancient. Like, this is something that has happened to people thousands of years. This like connects me to them. Was this thing that was happening? Yeah, I don't know. I'm just relaying information. So those are the connections I made so far. Going to the debrief now. Gonna go talk, figure this out, and then back here in a minute for more astral traveling.
So my name is Alan Evans, and I'm the CEO of the Monroe Institute, and I also train some when I have time. So I started having OBEs, or out-of-body experiences, spontaneously, and it wasn't here while I was here, actually. I was listening, though, to the take-home exercises.
Oh.
That is called the Gateway Wave series. But before I did that method, I had a few spontaneous ones with nothing, and so I experienced it, learned about it, then I wanted to get a little bit more directed. You know, the first time I did it, or the first couple of times, it was more related to exhaustion, you know, and just being at a point where I just didn't care what was happening. And so that just transpired, and I never was afraid. I've never looked at, you know, dreaming, lucid dreaming, OBEs as something to fear. I just see it as an experience. So for me, it's when that happens, it's like, woo, here we go. I did it very directive, where I, you know, put the 3 exercises together, 2 exercises, which is a meditation. So 45 minutes, 90 minutes, you know, and hour 20.
Mm-hmm.
And I found that to be helpful, like to do a meditation that had nothing to do with out of body, and then do a free flow or something like that to attach onto it, which means no verbal guidance, or not a whole lot of direction. And that was, so the second stage of it is where I was more successful.
Mm-hmm.
And then I found out in the afternoon was a good time for me, or early morning. You know, if you wake up like at 4:30 or 5,
okay,
you can be successful there. At least that's how it worked for me.
Yeah.
I tried the galantamine and the melatonin for lucid dreaming. That was very successful. But after at least for me personally, after I have these experiences, if I'm not interested in really working on it, like a remote viewing, if you're going to be good at remote viewing, which I'm sure Joe McMoneagle told y'all, it's a practice. It's something that has to be focused on pretty regularly. Same with OBE, same with lucid dreaming. You can do it all.
Mm-hmm.
It's just how much do you want to do it. I had an interesting experience with a trainer. I was here for a professional association meeting, and I was running the control room.
Mm-hmm.
And a trainer, it was an exercise that was not designed for out of body, but that trainer who was here had one.
Okay.
So as he realizes he's out of body, he's like, well, what do I do now? So then he was like, oh, I know, I'm going to go check on Alan in the control room and see if she'll see me or experience me somehow. So he shows up at the control room door, which I think you've seen, right?
Yes.
And that's where we do the meditations, where we're broadcasting to all you guys who are meditating. And so right when he does that, there's a knock at my door. Now, I had called maintenance. I needed some help with the equipment. This person, I'll call him Fred, just happened to be standing there when the door opened. Now, he sensed a male presence, but he didn't see him. So he just sees the door open. He sees me sitting at the control panel, and I look, and so I'm actually talking to Larry, who's the maintenance person, going, I'm good. Well, right then I did this, and Fred thinks I see him. And so after the meditation, he is so excited. He cannot wait to tell me or ask me about it. And no, I didn't see him, but he saw me.
He saw you give him the thumbs
I
up.
turned around and I said to Larry, because we can't, you know, we have the microphone, so we don't say a whole lot, so I just did it with us.
Wow.
I'm good.
Wow, but what a validation there still.
Yeah.
A lot of people need that validation.
Right.
Including myself. You know,
Me too.
I'm looking for it.
I want you to be a skeptic when you come here. I
Yeah.
mean, that's healthy
Yeah.
to do. Bob Monroe would always say, you go find out. You go do it. And so we continue that. We say, we'll tell you some of our stories when we're setting up for you to do the next meditation or afterwards, but it's not about what we do or what another participant experienced. It's about you.
Mm-hmm.
What did you do? What we have done is we've set a goal, a very lofty goal, of reaching 1% of the world's population, which is 80 million. That's our focus in the next 10 years, or now it's next 9 years. So we are doing things to help us do that because we think it's so valuable for human transformation, for quality of life, for peace, and it starts with the individual.
Yeah. If you were to travel anywhere right now, out of body, where would you go?
Oh, wow, I haven't been asked that question before.
Huh.
You could choose right now to go somewhere. Where would you go?
To go anywhere, anytime?
Yep.
Wow, that's a wild question.
Ooh.
That's such a hard question.
As you were formulating the question, the image that came to my mind, and to be honest, I don't even know if it makes any sense, but I'm going to say it anyway, was to my own future, to meet my future self. I would be very curious to know how that looks like.
The way my brain works, one of the biggest driving factors for me and my curiosity is, where did humans come from? And I have my theories, and I won't go there, but like the creation of the first human or the design of the first human, I want to be there at the assembly line.
Well, there is one place that I usually go to, and it's just like an archetype of universe. I see this like a Milky Way kind of thing, so I usually go there, and it's just my home.
I would want to go to the place where knowledge is held, you know? I would want to go to that place where I can learn things that are a little harder to figure out here.
The little evil guy on his shoulder says, Antarctica.
What's the guy on the other shoulder say?
Yeah, that's a great question. Probably just to see some family.
I would want to visit Locale 3. And Locale 3, I've done it once. Locale 3 is beyond, so it's a different world.
The weird stuff.
Yeah, yeah, I would like to do that.
You know, I would love to go back and talk to Robert Monroe, you know, in the early days. But I'd love to get his take on where we are today, you know, as a species, as humanity.
If you could say one thing to Robert Monroe right now.
Thank you. That's what I would say. Thank you, Bob.
And that was the last of the guided meditations for my Gateway retreat. It's tough to make this video. It is tough to conclude this experience here because I didn't get exactly what I was seeking. I've been struggling to get past this barrier during these meditations because part of me wants it to happen so bad for this video. Part of me wants it, you know, to be just this crazy experience that I get to share with you guys. And I feel like that pressure has prevented me from making that happen. Even just this recent meditation, I felt my whole body tremor, like from my toes, climbing all the way up my abdomen, all the way up to my head. I felt my stomach get this cold sensation. I started to lift. Like, these are real feelings. These aren't hallucinations. These are real feelings. Like, to the point they're so real that they scare me out of it. So if anyone at home is thinking, oh, it's all in your head. Yeah, everything's in your head, first of all. Second of all, that feeling it's so strong and it's so real that it scares me. I'm like, whoa, what the hell's happening to me? It's a crazy, crazy thing. Although I didn't leave my body here on this trip, I think I have the tools I need to do it at home. You know, what's real? My reality is based on what my perception and my experience is. And if my perception is that these things are real, then that is real to me, ultimately. Now, obviously, it'd be better if I could leave my body, go say hello to someone, and see what they're doing, give them a call, and be like, is that what you were doing? And they confirm yes. That would be incredible. Obviously, ideal. But obviously, I don't think that'll validate anything for you at the end of the day. Not until you try it yourself. This has been a life-changing experience, something I will never forget, and something I will take with me, I believe, for as long as I live. Some of these tools I will be putting into practice. You know, a few people here have written books. They are authors, published authors. They've listened to these Hemisync tapes while writing, and then while editing, like Jordan said. Jordan told me he was editing probably 80–85% of it he didn't remember writing. He was editing something that came from somewhere else, apparently, through this deep meditative state. Truth really is stranger than fiction, and magic exists in many forms. Have I had a spiritual awakening this week? Possibly. The one thing I have learned, I am more than my physical body. So are you.
Coming up on Area 52, investigations. So it finally happened. Twice.